seen. Secondly, it's important, or at least in many jurisdictions, they have an independent body, such as a judicial council, which is responsible for these processes, or to at least oversee them, including the demotions. Here I understand that, that the courts are responsible for that. In addition, I think a number of countries are now bringing in electronic case assignment. And this is tremendous because it prevents lawyers who have a person in front of the law from trying to get the right judge. It is done automatically and electronically. And in some cases, some countries are now televising court deliberations. An interesting example is the Consultative Council of European Judges. And it recommends that authorities responsible for judicial appointments and promotions not only use objective criteria, but publish them as well. And such criteria have been published in the United Kingdom and in about 21 European states. They already have such independent bodies with a role in judicial appointment and promotions. This allows for much better scrutiny from the media, from civil society, from citizens of those countries. In Chile, the oversight provided by the Consejo para la Transparencia in its 2 years of operation are impressive, particularly the way it demonstrates political independence and cooperates with other groups, especially civil society. Of course, I will not say much about the police, but we know that in our states, the police play a tremendous role in protecting people. And therefore, the last thing we should have is the police extorting fees from the citizens that it is there to serve. Let me say a few words about financial management, because the fight against corruption is often waged most effectively in the back offices of governments, where many of us in this room either have been or are at this time. And I firmly believe, and experience shows, that transparent and good financial management practices are one of the most important anti-corruption tools. Too often, government accounting systems are fragmented, some revenues are not included in the Treasury, in the main budget, and financial information is not readily publicly accessible, creating, therefore, an environment ripe for fraud. And I understand, again, in Chile, that this is a country that in this respect operates well, because the diversion of public funds for personal use really makes a mockery of accountability. If citizens cannot understand and find information on government revenues, budgets, disbursements, if they cannot follow the money from the time that it leaves the Ministry of Finance to the point that it arrives at the front line to hire teachers, medical doctors, to build roads, then people have a right to feel that maybe there's something to hide. And a study in Chad, to give you a quick example, undertaken by their Ministry of Finance about the funding of the health clinics in their country, found that 1% of the very large budget allocated to fund health clinics reached the people in terms of service. Who knows where the other 99% went? This may not be the exception, although it is an extreme case. Much can be done. And, you know, there are a number of countries, and the work that's now taking place here in modernizing the administration of government through the use of e-government offers an opportunity to make this transparency more systematic by providing a platform for disclosure of government financial process and for the use of electronic payments, in particular in areas most vulnerable to bribery. And such payments are for customs, for licenses, for fines, and for many other services. And e-government can save money. I know of a country that when the president decided to have a massive change in the revenue department using electronic payments, new software, massive training, retraining. Within a few years, they were able to have a return or to increase the revenues by a factor of 6%. And that was just for the tax. If you do it with other aspects, I'm sure it can be as great. Let me say a few comments about local governments, which are so important in our countries, because this is where us as citizens receive most of our services, whether it be for health, for education, whether it be for the building of roads, for sanitation, for water. And because these local spendings go to the heart of our lives, if the resources are not used in a transparent way and properly, and all of them for the purpose intended, then of course the disasters can be massive. And I have seen in a number of countries where this meant that people did not have access to education or health, or did not have access to water. Again, I know that it's not the case in this country, but I think everywhere around the world there is a lot of room to work with local governments, because there is a lot of improvement that's needed in my country, I have no doubt in this country as well. And so when there are devolution agreements between the national government to the local government, I think it becomes very important that these agreements contain transparency clauses, contain clauses that will allow to follow the money, with strong recommendations to develop a very different way for citizen participation with the local government plans, with their budgeting, and with their programs. And this, of course, devolution is happening more and more around the world. And the cost of these services is very large, so it's very important to have this, especially in the area of construction and public procurement. And let me say a word or two about public procurement and construction. In many of our governments, 70% of a country's budget, according to the OECD, is a worldwide market of US $2 trillion annually. And if you take 10 to 20 to 25% that is diverted, it's a lot of money that is not there to build the infrastructure in the country, which is so badly needed. So this is an area where we all need to spend much more time. And when we do surveys, this is the one that's identified as the most important, most vulnerable to corruption. So we have a number of tools in Transparency International where we use integrity pacts, pacts between those who will make proposals on a bid and the entity asking for the proposals, where there is a pact of non-bribery, a pact of total transparency, and therefore this has been used, for example, in Germany right now to build their very large new Berlin airport. And they have used it for 338 individual building processes, and so far, so good. There has been no evidence of any laundering or improper use of money or of bribes being paid. And in other situations where there are very large contracts, I think another mechanism is to have an independent, full-time monitoring system of the whole project from beginning to end. The Panama Canal widening project right now is doing that. I would like to just say a very few words about managing natural resources. I think in our countries around the world, including in this country, oil, gas, mining contribute a very large part of the money that comes to the state. And this is one where there has to be much greater transparency in what the companies pay and in what the government receives. And when that happens, I think we have a much different situation, much less diversion of money. And I could say much more about that if time were to permit. We now have in the world two very important conventions, the OECD Convention against bribery and the UN Convention Against Corruption. And these are tremendously important instruments, and I think we need to make sure that all our countries live by those. In terms of the OECD Convention, Chile and my country, Canada, are not doing as well as we could, and I think we have to work on that to make sure that this is improved. One of the points that I want to make in closing is that appointments to the public service and promotions to the public service are also very important. We talked about parliamentarians earlier, about judges, but when public servants are not appointed on the basis of merit or are not promoted on the basis of merit, what we have is, again, mistrust within the public service when people see people go in front of them who do not deserve to go, or when the public sees that. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, today I leave you with a very strong message. Governments can choose to make transparency and accountability the foundation on which their societies are built. They can choose to uphold the rule of law. In such a world, citizens can trust their leaders, and in such a world, their leaders can show they are worthy of the trust of their people. So making transparency from primary school on, which is what our chapter is doing so well now, I think making ethics the norm, creating a strong moral fiber in our young people is vital. And in a world of satellite TV, Facebook, and Twitter, the message to take to the streets to fight corruption and impunity went viral. I strongly believe that we can also get transparency, integrity, and accountability to go viral as well. Thank you very much.